episode of Mzansi Business. My name is Nobukhanya Mdambo. Thank you so much for making the time to watch and to listen to our podcast. Remember that every single week we, on this very podcast, take the time to talk about some of the conversations that move South African SMEs. And this week, no different to any other, we shine the spotlight on another small business called TSS Petroleum Group, which is an authorized fuel distribution company. And on this episode, we have the founder and CEO of that company, Faith Madoda. Faith, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us today. Welcome to Mzansi Business.
Thank you for the opportunity also. It's a pleasure to be a part of this platform today. And we highly appreciate the time and effort.
I've obviously oversimplified what it is that you do. Tell me more about TSS Petroleum Group.
TSS Petroleum is a downstream energy distributor. So we supply fuel and OEM approved lubricants. We are accredited with Puma Energies to supply their products. So we also do technical support in the mines, whereby we do assessments, temperature tests to check, especially with your conveyors, the engine temperatures and so that we can recommend a specific lubricant which is specifically right for those temperatures and pressures.
It sounds like a very technical stream to be in. Can you tell me why you went into that direction? What was your big reason?
I always had a dream of owning a filling station one day when I was growing up at a very young age. I have a friend who, when we had toys, he had these agriculture toys, and I had this filling station once and so. And surprisingly, by God's grace, he's into agriculture and I'm into fuel. So it was always a dream and it has come true. And along the way, when you get into the industry, you get to learn some opportunities, you get to learn to study the market and see where there are leakages and where you can tap into the market. And you, as they always say in business, when you go into business, you have to come with solutions, not to come with issues.
And speaking of that market, Faith, you're obviously based in the Northern Cape. What was it that you saw missing? What was the gap in the market that you identified and wanted to fill?
The market in the Northern Cape, the Northern Cape as a whole has over 140 mines, of which the demarcation of Kuruman alone has over 70 mines, which we are taking the areas of Hotazel, Kathu, Bosmansberg, and the other surrounding areas, and Uppington and so. Then you come to face that a lot of downtimes. And also sometimes it's not due to breakdowns. Sometimes it's caused by delay of logistics, of transportation of lubricants to the customer. Because now the lubricants are coming from Joburg or from Devon. So the other idea that I always had was to industrialize the local economy, and to also diversify the local economy of Kuruman, because if you check the IDC reports, they show that the Kuruman demarcation in the next decade, it will become a ghost town, such as your Carltonville, what's happening currently. So my main perspective and main concept is to make sure that the economy of Kuruman is sufficiently diversified, such as your historical town, Johannesburg, which was your historic gold mining. So also what we went to check is that there is a lot of lubricants, counterfeit products that are coming down to the area. So we want to localize the local lubrication, so that customers, they know where they got the product, so that if they need to go and do an assessment, they find us locally. And it's easy to access, and they access us on time. They don't need to plan trips or anything. And we want to make sure that they get the correct product. That's why we only working with Puma. We don't want to partner with other, measures as yet, because we already know the quality of Puma and how the Puma lubricants were designed. Because the way they were specially designed for your African temperatures, your mining temperatures, tough roads. So that's why we prefer to work with Puma currently, strictly so.
I'll come back to that partnership with Puma Energy, but I still want you to just tap into the Northern Cape. When you're talking about diversifying and localizing within the province and then, more central to Kuruman as well, that doesn't sound like an easy feat at all. What sort of networks have you had to build over time to bring you closer to that goal?
To be honest, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. I'm all alone, no support. So we need to get market, because when you go to financial institutions, they request your annual financial statement, so it makes it difficult to get funding for any project that you want to do or any investment that you want to do. So we also still, pushing to get more customers, and so that we perform, and also for our financial statements to grow in order for us to get access to funding. But honestly, we have access to product. We can supply to whatever value as long as the contract is at least minimum 12 months. So it takes us back to the topic of our partnership with Puma, because they support us fully. So if we get a customer now, if it's a fully operational mine, taking whatever fuel or lubricants to a value of 30 million or 50 million, they're going to support us fully, So, but to industrialize, it's going to take us years. It's not going to be, it also took me 8 years to be where I am today. It took me 7 years to have partnership with Puma, but I'm still patient with it. It's all a matter of patience as long as you see the goal. And the reason why we want to do that is because, check, for example, Kimberley in the past years, the economy was dying, facing reality. And the economy of Kimberley was rescued by building Salt Lake University, because I think you are aware that the airports were going to go into auction and so. But as soon as the development of Salt Lake University came in, that's when those auctions and the economy, it was rescued. So I want to play a role in making sure that the future economy of Kuruman, like I said, it's having security. Yes.
Part of that is, of course, like you've mentioned, the process of industrializing is making sure that you've got the industrialists in place. And, your network may not at the moment be what it needs to be to make sure that you're hitting those goals. But what are some of the, outside of maybe even the Northern Cape, from a government perspective, then the sort of assistance that you may need to make sure that you're able to help build or, lend a hand in helping to build other industrials that want to come into the Northern Cape, want to come into Kuruman as well?
With this situation, we need, if the DMRE plays part of it, but also DAL, which is your land reform, plays a role in it. But now you also find these departments, they failing our communities, because most of the other people, when they try to do applications, there are many processes that come into place. And for me, I did not have it easy. I had a 3 hectare land on the N14 to Kuruman, and I left, that opportunity of that land, because we had to do a lot of studies, town planning. And after all those processes, again, we have to submit to DAL, it has to go to the ministerial office, which can take 2 to 3 years to get an approval from the minister for you to get a title deed. Because most investors, they prefer for one to hold a title deed. Because in most cases, you're holding tribunal land, it becomes a problem for them to invest. Because you invest 500 million today, tomorrow you're selling that infrastructure, you're selling it with maybe 300 million, which is lesser than the investment that was made into it, only because of the title deed issue. And if you check Kuruman as a whole, let me not say Kuruman, Northern Cape has a lot of potential land to industrialize. And you see most of the land is being used for your solar plants and so, but we need to industrialize and use the other land, because our lands are more of your desert areas. So we need to make sure that we use that land for a good purpose. For example, most of our iron ore and manganese, they are being exported, and we have to buy steel and, other material from the other countries after selling them the raw material. And that's why our economy is not performing. So we need to start, with the basic things that we need to start with to industrialize whilst, because these things, they require money. You get a private town planner, you have to pay them. No one will invest into a project unless they have all the approvals. Investors are lazy of going through the channels of and those processes. They want you to get all the approvals, get the public partnership agreement, sort of your solar plants. When you build a solar plant, you need to have a public partnership agreement with the municipality or with Tescom, or you don't have market. But to get to that point, there are processes that you need to go through, and it's just not easy. I don't want to lie. I don't want to sugarcoat it.
You obviously operate in an industry that's highly competitive and it's capital intensive. I mean, you've also just mentioned that there's a lot of hurdles to jump over in terms of regulations, getting the thumbs up from business, whether the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources or land reform and the likes. Speak to me about the biggest hurdles that you faced in establishing TSS Petroleum over the years, those 3 years that were the toughest for you. In terms of regulation. What else was, part of the hurdles that you had to jump over in establishing your business?
In 2017, I started a scholar transport contract, which was a year after my matric, in September. It was just 8 months actually after my matric. And then in March, terminated the contract because the numbers were not making good sense. The roads were bad. We faced a lot of breakdowns. And the following year, I started studying more and said, let me, focus on my goals. And then we registered TSS Petroleum the following year, went into studying more and learning more about fuel, like your magisterial district zones, how the fuel prices works, with the pricing in different towns. They are determined, like you have your 13C, you have your 11C, your 1A, you have your coastal prices. Then those were the basics that I started studying, and then got the wholesale license. COVID came in, which was in 2020. And then, it was a huge setback because you got a fuel license in 2019. And then 2021, on the 8th of November, I got my first order of diesel. It was with Citibank Water. From that time to 2022 April, I made a turnover of 14 million. Things went south again. Started to affect me psychologically, I'll be honest, but I had to stand strong and know what my goal is. Then going back into the market, I told myself, I know what's happening in the market. You go into the market and customers don't trust you, or you are a new entrant. They want to know, where do you get your product? What's the quality? Those quality assurances. Give us your technical data sheets. Where is the agreement and arrangement with the franchise or your supplier? Where are their storages? Those are the things that, I faced a lot. Then I decided that I'm not going back into the market without a backing of a franchise. I wanted Sasol so badly. I went to Sasol, I think, 2, 3 applications. They went well. Along the way, they were declined. And then I got Grace, I got Puma, and I don't regret going to Puma. So it was not an easy task. And now we getting land, and you also end up making mistakes that you learn from. But it's a way of specializing in a way, because you end up knowing what are the needs and the wants, and before you start something. Like now, I can stand on a corner or on a certain road and assess and say, okay, maybe someone tells me that he has a land and there's a potential of a filling station. I can stand there and assess, before putting up any technical studies or anything, and just oversee and see, well, okay, there's no market, then you won't get any approval. But before, like the land on the N14, I made an application for that land. I got the resolution, the tribunal resolution, went to the land reform, I still have all the documents with me, but they are not working for me, because you experience that after you do your traffic study. So I'll advise the other people that are coming into the industry. start with a traffic study before doing anything. I've done that mistake before. You'll be paying town planners, you'll be paying, other professional services. Then come the traffic study, and the traffic study declines. Also, your geotech. That's the most, your traffic study and your geotech. Those are your two most important parts. Because you get your traffic study approved and you move to the other stuff, then your geotech gets declined. Because now what you're having, maybe the land that you have analyzed, or, it's having a dolomite on it. Obviously, with dolomite, they want to prove you to have a filling station or even a truck store. So those are the two most critical parts where you need to start before you move to anything if you want to own a filling station. Because I'm just giving advice for one to not spend a lot of money and not recover it or make whatever you wanted to do to become successful.
Is a lot of that self-taught, or are there other industrialists that you've been able to lean on to sort of guide you in that very complex and technical process?
I'll be honest, I've taught myself. I've been a chase of opportunities. Sometimes you're on a conference call, it was so amazing. Like you have been 8 years old, you're speaking to someone who's 52 years old, you're in contact with a deal. You don't even know if it's going to become successful or not, with guys from Ghana, Belgium, or whatever. And then you become so proud being on that conference call, the numbers there, it's international calls and whatever. So you get to learn, you start talking about your 13C, what is the region of that area, what are the regulations and so. So honestly, I learned through that process. So as I was listening, I used to Google to say, okay, what's 13C? What's 11C? What's 1A? Then that's how I managed to learn about the pricing strategies, the national pricing strategies, because, but it was not easy. And then I had to buy some books to, always I used to, it was my daily break. Every morning I would wake up at 8, sit on a dining table at home, Google about fuel, just reading on the website, or the National Treasury website, Google what is this, what is that, So that's how basically I managed to learn. And then going into the industry, what customers want and what they don't want. Then I managed to learn also through that process.
Let's go back to your partnership with Puma Energy. You said you knew that you needed the backing of a fuel major at some point. The one with Sasol didn't quite work out how you hoped before you landed the Puma Energy deal. How do you think that then changed the scale and the direction of your business?
It did not change a lot because I believe majors also support their distributors. Just they will support you differently, but being with Puma has been quite motivating a lot. And getting Puma and the support that they give us, like I mentioned earlier, it gives you the confidence, it gives you the energy, the drive, even when whatever room that you go into, you come with confidence that when they ask you about the quality of the product, it's something. So you get technical support. We also get technical support, like your trainings, workshops to say, okay, this is the new look, this is the new lubricant, this is how it works, this is, the temperature parameters, the pumpability, the pressures that we can work in. It has really changed because it has given me more knowledge about lubricants. I always thought, okay, looking at big trucks, that's where the money is. Where passing the diesel that's passing there with a full load of diesel. But working with Puma, it taught me that lubricant, there's a need and a gap in the market of lubricants. And also I managed to learn the technicality of lubricant and fuel, how the importance of quality in your engines, how the wrong lubricants or the wrong fuel, let's say blended or like your contaminated lubricants, how they can affect your engine. And honestly, I've learned a lot. Technically, we've received And it's also, helping us because when you go into those rooms, like I mentioned, you go in with the confidence of knowing the product that you supply, knowing the quality that you supply, and knowing the need that specific customer needs for their machines. Because take for mines, one machine in the mines, like it's worth millions of dollars. So no one will come and buy oil from you if you're not supplying the right quality. Like I can spend 10,000 on a machine of, let's say, $20 million, and I spend 10,000 on oil, maybe on an oil drum, and then it damages the engine. How much am I going to spend on that? So I need to buy the right quality. Like for now, let me show you something. For example, we now know, like oil technicalities, we're talking viscosity and other, pumpability and, now we have synthetic oils. Your synthetic oils, they also increase your service intervals, which decreases your downtime because now you'll be servicing like one machine in the mines. If you're using 15W40, you're going to be servicing every 250 hours of operation on that machine. But now if you use synthetic oil, you're going to be servicing after 500 hours, which is a netted advantage to you because now you don't have, instead of having two services, two downtimes, you have one downtime, which saves you money, which also saves you time and also makes you money because your machine is operating for 500 hours instead of intervals of 250 hours. So now, let's say you're on 1,000 hours, you're now having four downtimes of 250 hours service intervals. Now, if you're using synthetic, your hours of service intervals becomes two, which now you only have two downtimes, which is 500 hours and your 1,000, the other 500 hours. So basically, we are bringing solutions to the mind.
And just on that note, the industry is obviously evolving with the prevalence now of cleaner fuels. You've got your newer technologies coming onto the scene, but you've also got changing regulations coming in with those new technologies and the evolving use of cleaner fuels. How have you started to think about how that could impact TSS or how you then plug into that evolving landscape?
Remember with Puma, we want to grow with Puma, and not to say it's an advantage for us, but whatever energy that is coming, remember Puma has partnered with Trafigura. Trafigura is one of the major commodity traders in the world, and Puma being a part of Trafigura, Puma is gonna grow to greater heights, and also with your cleaner fuels. But I can say, no matter what can happen, no matter what technology comes in, fuel is not going anywhere. Fuel is going to remain. Like, take for example, I think you've noticed that recently in the past 2, 3 years or 5 or so, we've only been getting diesel bikes being manufactured. But currently, if you check this year, check the number of petrol vehicles that were released by Ford. It shows you that there was a little bit of usage. It was a gap in usage of petroleum, and there was a gap in diesel. Diesel was more saturated. So now they're trying to say, okay, let's reduce on the diesel because the mines are using a lot of diesel. Also, there are a lot of buggies and equipment that are using on construction sites, industries, it's diesel. So now they're going back to manufacturing petrol buggies. So also, where's the crude oil gonna go if the vehicles, like the technologies, are gonna saturate the market in a sense that you no longer have to drive your petrol or diesel buggy? It's not possible. Where's the crude oil gonna go? It means the crude is gonna stay underground, and there will be, like, even the markets are to be affected, the currencies are to be affected. So it's something that's not possible. Maybe it can happen after 100 years, I don't know, but for now it won't.
You and I may not live that long to see that happening in the case. You try to be fairly close to the end user. And when you look at the business operating environment of some of the industries that you then serve, the mining industry, for example, in South Africa, our mining capability and capacity over the past couple of years has been affected. How does that then trickle down to the likes of TSS Petroleum, for example, when you see our mining industry, manufacturing industries not operating to the best capacity for a range of reasons? How does it trickle down to your business?
Yeah, that one it really affects us, but we won't be shaken by challenges because we arrived here through challenges.
Mm.
So it affects us a lot, especially financially. It affects our performance because also remember with your franchises and you have targets and performance targets and so you end up being to underperform and so. But I believe also what we're trying to do is to, like I said, that the Puma energy lubricants, how they are designed, we're trying to come to work with the mines closely to also assist them with the machines that they experience serious, breakdowns due to wrong lubrication or getting counterfeit lubrications, and they affect their plants and so. So that's what we're trying to overcome. That's why the intention is to localize, to make sure that the mines, they have a smooth operation, they run sufficiently, and, because of most of the operations are affected by wrong lubrication or using products that are contaminated and so on.
And still looking at the business operating environment, we are obviously at the moment faced with higher fuel prices as consumers and major industries with high fuel consumption as well. There's also supply pressures, whether that being as a function of the war in the Middle East or whatever other shifts that we've seen over the past couple of years. How do you as a business that close to that industry navigate that?
Yeah, difficult answer. But, we hanging on. Most operations have reduced their production. And let's talk logistics. Logistics, most trucks are on standstill because of the fuel price. And every time you experience, take for example, there was a time when the price of diesel went to about 24 rands or 25 rands. You had transporters reducing transportation speed from 80, 70 to 50, kilometers per hour. So now it tells you that these people, how long is that truck gonna get? How is it, getting to PE, which is over 1,000 kilos? How long is it gonna take to get there? Which is something that you need to ask yourself. So it makes it quite difficult because now consumption in fuel goes low. Customers are no longer ordering as before. And it's honestly something very, very bad. You have customers that are like, because now fuel is their main expense, operational expense, and they can operate without fuel. And now if your operational expense and you have a budget, it means your budget has changed completely. So you end up finding mines retrenching, and also now most truck drivers are staying at home because of the fuel price. But since the price went down, it has become a little bit better. But we also looking at August. We believe that in August, the prices will be way better.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to wait and see. Faith, just as we close it out, any aspirations still of owning your own filling station? Is that something that's still on the cards for you?
Yes, it's still in the process. Actually, it's on the process. I'm awaiting land documents. We went to hand over events in a few weeks back. I think it was 3 weeks back. So I think maybe I'm hoping that within the next 3 weeks, we will be getting the land documents. Also, we've been busy with also doing studies on the land whilst awaiting the land documents, so that as soon as we get the land documents, but we're going to start it as a truck stop because we are wholesale licensed and we are limited to a certain volume. And then, but also now, our concept has diverted into distribution, especially lubricants distribution, because we have access to original equipment manufacturer approved lubricants with the best quality. And we have market in it. So our concept is honestly diverted because we have analyzed the gap. The concept was a filling station, but we have seen a gap in the market that we want to take an opportunity. So there on that land, what we wanna have house, your LPG gas, your lubricants distribution warehouse, and a diesel depot. So most of our diesel will be distributing, and so trucks will be filling up there. So so that's how it is. The concept has changed. But it will still be the dream.
Yeah, Faith, we certainly can't wait to see what you're able to do with that land once you've gotten, again, the regulatory hurdles over the line. And hopefully that we are able to catch up with you once it's up and running. We'll hit the N14 as well. Hopefully get to see it ourselves. Faith, such a pleasure to have you on today's episode of Mzansi Business. That's Faith Madota, the founder and CEO of TSS Petroleum Group, speaking to us about really navigating a tough and really complicated and technical industry that he is in. I hope it's been just as insightful for you as it has been for us and the team as well. Again, catch the other episodes that you've missed on moneyweb.co.za or on our YouTube page, Moneyweb TV. Till the very next episode, it's goodbye for now.